Today is January 2026. My name is Pete, and this is my documentary of my journey to find recovery, thereby finding hope. I am documenting this journey because it tells a story that I need to be told. It helps me to use my brain the only way I can really think to use it these days, 15 plus months after a traumatic brain injury came real close to killing me, requiring 14 days on a ventilator in a medically induced coma with pneumonia and other issues. I did miraculously wake up after being extubated. Now, after almost 16 months after that traumatic brain injury occurred, right at the hospital where I worked at as a registered nurse, I am struggling to hang in there 9 more days, 8 more days, to have an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion surgery, C5, C7, whatever, that I have wanted for over a year. I have watched almost 100 videos of every aspect of neurosurgery, neuroscience, anything that could possibly give me any sense of hope based on what science and medicine already know. I have learned that attaching hope to what medicine knows or could be done could possibly help me find a way forward. I have learned that time and time again, that hope was dashed. So I pick up the pieces and search elsewhere for hope. Now, I will have a fusion surgery on the 27th, finally. I know I cannot start any type of PT or vestibular rehabilitation or anything of the sort, which I haven't even started yet, for a few months after this surgery, so my cervical spine can fuse and this. But I have known since those CAT scans when I was on a ventilator in the SICU at Northwell, that the sheer whiplash, destruction, herniation of my cervical spine that occurred right at the time when my head smacked the 4th floor of the hospital I was working at after I was unconscious, after being suddenly punched in the face, became rigid and fell straight back, suffering 2 skull fractures and 3 brain bleeds, right there at South Beach Psychiatric Center. In my 25th year there at South Beach, working for the New York State Office of Mental Health, most of the time spent as a nurse supervisor, administrator, middle management. I was also in my 38th year as a registered professional nurse in New York State, when my career was ended and my life was destroyed on September 17th of 2024, the day when so much of me did die, including my ego, sense of self, any hope at all for a future. And before a year went by after struggling to get any type of surgical care, I had lost the desire to live and was involuntarily admitted to the same comprehensive psych emergency program, PsychER, that I worked at as a registered nurse early in my nursing career, 35 years prior. I have had many challenges, but they all seem to connect to something so many other people are familiar with: the invisible syndrome of brain injury. I have suffered, I believe, more than anyone should ever suffer because of the invisible syndrome of brain injury. I believe it is directly responsible for the PTSD I struggle to survive now. The invisible syndrome or invisible illness of brain injury, which, just looking at me, if you didn't hear me speak, you might assume all types of things about me. I'm a 59-year-old white guy from Staten Island. You can assume all sorts of things just by speculating because of my age, where I'm from, how I might be or might feel about something. This is exactly what happened and is exactly the reason I wrestle with PTSD every single day. I have looked at the cause and effect of different things in my life. I have looked at what PTSD has done, what pain has done. I know very well what pain can do. Came very close to doing it to me. But I also know pain can propel a person to do something good, positive. Well, that's my story. It's how I try to convert pain and negative energy into something I can possibly use. And so, going back to the old me as a neurodivergent empath, as someone who was a relentless advocate for others who had various types of brain disorders. Then it was typically chronic and serious mental illness. While I dealt with my own mental illness in a way that maybe so many other neurodivergent young people deal with theirs. With ADHD, inattentive type, and major depression for a lifetime, I had learned exactly how to wear a mask of invisibility, how to separate what I thought and felt from what I did and said, so I could put together the career I had, and I could accomplish the things I did accomplish. Because a man with an associate's degree in nursing who tried 3 times to re-enroll in college and it never did quite work out yet, I had enough intelligence and cognitive ability to be in a position where I was helping master's and doctoral students learn and become certified, and providers, prescribers. It was always an honor for me to be part of another person's educational process where they could learn and grow and become valuable assets on interdisciplinary teams. A man I never met before a few weeks ago asked me something. He said, "Do you have a lawyer? You should sue that hospital for all they got after what you went through." And I said, "I actually don't have a lawyer. I do not have a lawsuit. There's a workers' comp settlement eventually, but I don't have to prove I was injured at work. It's right there on high-def video used in the criminal case against the defendant who ended my career, who manipulated his way into that hospital by getting parole division to blur the lines between agencies." The worst possible example of this plan backfiring is me. The worst assault and injury of a registered nurse on the job in the history of the New York State Office of Mental Health, I believe, is me. Because I have never been one to exaggerate, while I am filming my documentary, my autobiography about my experiences, I intend to ask in person OMH when I get to Albany, and it will be filmed for my documentary. Show me evidence I am exaggerating. I am not the most severely injured nurse in the history of New York State Office of Mental Health injured on the job. The other thing that I might be notable for or have notoriety for has not been reported by anyone, but being a victim of the most cruelest, most heinous HIPAA violation ever imaginable. That's a challenge all my own, complicated by the fact of a cover-up. So the burden of being accused of lying or having some alternative reason to lie and manipulate, I have no horse in the game. I have no lawsuit. I should just roll up in bed and let life pass me by. I have gratitude that I am retired. I was approved for SSD on the first try. I think because the science is there, that at some point or another, the federal government will be responsible to take care of me. Hence, it was approved. But the ability to get appropriate medical or surgical care related to the injuries I have sustained, I haven't been able to do that just yet. But I will have a fusion surgery in about a week. And I am very motivated. I know it'll be more pain, but it's the only way I can even dream of one day doing vestibular rehabilitation or neuro rehabilitation or anything anywhere. So for now, without the ability to do PT or do much of anything with myelopathy, dysautonomia, vomiting every day, barely able to live on Ensure at 130 pounds. Pain everywhere, rickety, with vertigo and cervicogenic spins and other spins. It is a brutal existence for me, and it has been. What has changed since late this summer is my attitude and my advocacy. Well, really, everything has changed. Because in the past, the old me, if I had any idea anyone I had ever known was suffering the way I've been suffering, my advocacy would be soaring, and there is nothing I wouldn't do to help that person. That they should suffer in silence, thinking they're supposed to just rot away until they're gone, after being assaulted and losing everything, and a line of duty assault after donating a lifetime to public care of people who had nothing, to be thrown away like a piece of garbage by workers' comp, to be accused of being things I am not during that HIPAA violation. I do not need anyone to investigate it. I lived it. I lived through the cover-up. But the thing is this. I will by no means complete suicide. When I say by no means, it is because I have always been a mandated reporter and a trainer of suicide prevention and harm reduction. I train trainers. I believed in that, and I still do. So when I say by no means, what I'm referring to are people that start doing reckless things or careless things. I see it exactly as it is, suicide. And whatever a person might do that is not usual for their behavior may also be further distracted by family members who feel horrible or embarrassed their loved one killed themselves. But regardless, however it is, suicide is suicide. And I do not pass judgment on anyone that has completed suicide in the past. Any one of the patients I have had, or friends or coworkers. Because there is something else I have learned a lot about. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. I was faced right there with that. A fear. Fear and pain, they can do things to a person. They can take everything away. For a person who is silent, not threatening, not making gestures, for that person who has decided the only way is for everything to end. I have a different feeling about that situation and that person or those people because I have been one myself. I was right there at the absolute limits of loss, pain, and trauma. I knew the day I was to die. I was out of risk management tools, tricks, things I could possibly imagine. But I was dealing with all these horrors silently and stoically. And I was going to be what I was supposed to be. Something in the ground. With false ideas blinding me and pain ripping me apart. I was ready. And I was all set to go. Something did happen to me. Jammed up my intentions and my plans. It has never been an issue of could I. It has been should I. And for many months after I was traumatized and re-traumatized, I absolutely believed I should. I could not justify suffering anymore. I began to believe that just suffering and rotting away was some kind of a luxury that I was unworthy of having. So I wrestled in my mind, well, what to do? I don't want to kill myself. I have imagined such horrors happening to me. So long I dreamt of horrors. It actually lost its shock effect with me. It became tedious and boring. But I did not break out of those false ideas placed in my head by people that were enraged at me for things I just haven't figured out yet. I did punch through those false ideas. Right on the day that was to be my last. I have changed in many ways since suffering a traumatic brain injury. I have also changed in many ways since the end of this past summer. The day I was to be no more amongst the living. It wasn't the end, but a beginning. A beginning of my awakening as the transformed empath that I am. I contain myself with insane amounts of self-discipline and willpower and fortitude. My anger and rage is thermonuclear, but not in general and not towards anyone that I do not believe deserves it. But the amount of energy, mental energy I am using to contain my anger and rage, I just don't know how long I can do that for. Because if I just let go of my grip, it would have tragic consequences. And I do want to live. There are things I want to experience. But testing a person's resolve, their willingness to live, it could result in my death. No, I don't want to get threatening now. I am full of gratitude that I am alive, awake, and aware, and I have the insight to know that different things for different people. I will be active in volunteer groups sharing the things I have learned over many years in the field, and especially since suffering a traumatic brain injury and incredible amounts of PTSD after. I have examined the cause and effect relationship between what happened to me, my PTSD, and everything, including my silence for almost a year, including my being admitted to CPAP. It's all exactly part of it. The same things I have been wrestling with, I continue to wrestle with right now, with an exception. My needs no longer include my destruction. They did before. That has changed. I do not need acceptance or validation or any sorts of concerns about being embarrassed. Do not matter to me whatsoever. I think when you've been through what I've been through, lots of things that used to be important in the past don't really matter at all anymore. Because I can decide who and what I will be, and I choose how I will be and what I will do. I am not limited as I once was. Physically, I struggle to even drink Ensure and survive, but in other ways, there is almost nothing I cannot do. I do caution people who look at things in a clinical lens and a personal lens as I do, because anyone who might assume from past clinical experience or personal experiences or whatever that I mean something other than what I am actually saying. If you are the kind of person who reads between the lines, it is important to actually hear what I say and not read between lines. Knowing how to communicate can help anyone's career as a clinician or family member or person living with any type of a brain disorder. I am a man who says what he means. I don't say it mean, but I am so very real and authentic. Probably uncomfortably so for a lot of people. But I care more than ever for members of marginalized and vulnerable communities that I just so happen to be a member of myself. That is nothing new for me.